Hey, what's good, everyone? Welcome to another reading. This one is going to be just a message from Spirit. I don't know. I was getting vibes here with like kind of what inspired this reading. Or maybe I won't call it a message from Spirit. We'll see how it goes. But what inspired this reading is I was recently physically reading the story of Moses. And I found it really fascinating, like rereading it as I'd say an adult, and paying attention to some of the details and the wordings in the story, particularly how Moses is receiving these messages from God and then conveying those messages to the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh basically hardening his heart, I think. Or specifically, it says the Lord hardens his heart, which I found interesting. It's like, I'm still not sure what to make of it, but it's like God was almost giving him the stubbornness to say no, which is interesting because it doesn't really mention that in, you know, the children's stories and just the stories you read about like Moses. I remember specifically the animation which I used to love called The Prince of Egypt. If you haven't watched it, I recommend you watch it. But basically, in that animation, they convey the story like the Pharaoh's just stubborn all by himself. But if you actually read the Bible in the same way that Moses is getting, like kind of working through God by saying, let my people go, I understood it as the Pharaoh was actually kind of getting channeled through God too, in terms of being stubborn, you know. And I just never saw that story explained. I recommend you guys read it if you haven't read the Bible, or at least this little bit. Kind of just Google it or something. But it's quite interesting because, to me, how I've read it is both of these two characters, Moses and the Pharaoh, are both being used through God. Whereas I originally understood the story as Moses is getting used through God, and the Pharaoh is just in his own stubborn ego, not being used through God, you know? So, anyways, that's what inspired this reading. Hopefully that's going to underpin kind of these stories. I'm kind of getting this idea now of like conversation. You could say, argue like polarities, like the Pharaoh and Moses. So maybe that will kind of inspire this reading too. But that's what inspired it. Like I said, that was my interpretation. I'm not saying that it's the actual interpretation, but just a detail that I was paying attention to when I was reading today. It does say the Lord hardened his heart. You know, it didn't say, when we're referring to the Pharaoh, it says the Lord hardened the heart of the Pharaoh, something along those lines. It didn't say the Pharaoh had a hardened heart and said no, you know. It said the Lord hardened his heart. So anyways, that was just my little 2 cents to add into the introduction. Again, not forcing religion on anyone, just taking an interesting point and sharing it with you guys. So as always, we've got pile number 1, pile number 2, and pile number 3. Feel free to pause the video and I'll see you in your pile, starting with pile number 1. Okay, pile number 1's just sitting on the energy, seeing what comes through. dreadfully hot in here at the moment. Okay, so kind of what you got there, it's like a simplistic. I like it though. I really like it. Something very kind of minimalist about it. Um, Obviously, before I start with this, I would ask you, pile number one, what do you see and what do you feel? So what I saw was an old king. An old king. But you might see a wizard. You might see just an old man wearing a crown. He might not be a king. You may, I don't know, you might see. It's quite hard actually to ignore the king aspect because of the crown on the head. It's not very ambiguous in terms of, is that a hairstyle? I guess if you're Bart Simpson, maybe. But yeah, there's kind of a clear aspect here of king energy. So with that, like, you could also take away what king would that be in the tarot. If you was to use your own intuition, what king would that be in the tarot? Would that be the King of Wands, the King of Pentacles, the King of Cups? What's the one I'm missing? King of Wands, King of Pentacles, King of Cups, and King of Swords. What king would that be if you was to use your intuition? Because there's not much surrounding information. There's not much clothing information. I will tell you this though, maybe one of the energies that I got from the reading was possibly, if this was one of the four, I'd maybe say it was the King of Pentacles. Now, I'll tell you why. Because if I had more time in this reading to draw it, I maybe would have drawn this garment that he's got on very decoratively with many little details in the garment. And with that, it gives me a sense of not just kingship, but elegance, wealth, luxurious, and that kind of gives me more of a pentacles-y vibe. Right now, I'm not a tarot specialist here, expert, sorry, to say, are the other kings super wealthy too? Possibly. But that's kind of what came to me. So just to follow the clues from Spirit, I'd say we've got almost this King of Pentacles energy. But there's a juxtaposition here, which is interesting. If you didn't listen to the introduction, I kind of did talk about these two things, these two aspects. And one of the aspects that's coming through here with this pile is that there's this sense of wealth, but there's a sense of old age too. So I'm laughing because it's like, shit, if that's your message, at least me, like my younger self, if I was listening to this, yeah, I'm laughing a lot now, actually. Because I'm like, if I knew that it would take me the age that I'm at, I'm not putting my age on blast here, but if I knew it would have taken me this long to get the money that I've got, I probably would have thought that I was this age. Like 16-year-old me would have been like, fuck that, that takes away. I'm old by then. I don't know, I blame kind of maybe social media and social programming in general. I think it's so easy for young people to get caught. And when I'm saying young, I'm talking if you're like between, I guess you shouldn't really be watching this if you're not a teenager yet. So let's say 13. Actually, it's 18. I put 18 plus in all my videos actually. So let's just say 18 to 24. You young. 25 upwards. Yeah, you're kind of moving on. Now, I will say I'm in my 30s, but when I look back at my life so far, don't get me wrong, like, you can have a young heart forever. But from 18 to kind of 24, don't know, that age might be changing. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. This is clearly a message for you, pile number ones. But what I'm trying to get at is that society kind of programs you to, like, if you're not one of these unique people who've like made millions in your early 20s, you kind of feel a little bit left out. And at least I did. At least I did. Like when you're seeing these celebrities or these famous singers, or these famous young entrepreneurs starting businesses so young and being successful, it's easy to get, it's easy to kind of feel left out of the mix. And I think maybe what your message here is from Spirit is that, well, for one, I feel this is, for Power Ones, I feel like this is a message to confirm that you are going to make it. Financially, you are going to make it. And you probably are going to see yourself as, man, I'm a bit old when I've made it. And again, look, life is in your hands. If you're 18 watching this, you may be very financially successful at 20 years old. But Spirit, for the majority of you, is kind of just reminding you that what you kind of see as old isn't necessarily old. And that's what was making me laugh at the beginning of this reading, because I was thinking, if my older self was watching this, my younger self was watching this pile, and someone was to tell me at my age, that's when you're gonna make it, I would have been like, jeez, that's so long. That's such a long time to wait. Like, I want it now. And now that I am the age I am, and I'm content with where I am financially, I can say in my current state, it's not what I thought it was. I didn't think I would be as young-minded, at least, as I am. I wouldn't think that I'd still embody so much of that youthful energy that I still do. So, pile number ones, this is one, a confirmation that you are going to reach that success in terms of financial dreams that you might have. It may come later than you would want, That's not to say that it's going to come late, but it may come later than you possibly expect. And for those people as well, who's watching this, I'd just encourage you to be like, now that you know that that abundance is coming to you, how are you going to live life? You know? Like, so I think I wrote a quote on this, so check out my Instagram if you pause, at if you pause. But I did a quote on this, like, if you knew that your dream amount of money was coming to you in a year, 5 years, 2 years, 2 months, 15 years, how would you spend the next 15 years? You know, that's kind of what I'll leave you with, pearl number 1. If you knew that your dream amount of money is coming to you, it's written in the stars, it's done, it's coming to you in 15 years, how would you spend how would you spend your next 15 years? And I think that's kind of what Spirit wants you to embrace. So, Pearl Ones, if that was helpful, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the If You Pause website, ifyoupause.com, and I'll see you in the next reading. Take care. Okay, part 2's without breaking everything in this apartment. Been dropping things. Actually, I'm gonna pause on that a little bit. Pause. Okay, I don't know how I'm gonna draw this, but I'll try. Okay, so what we've got here there's kind of an element of quirkiness to it. Like the proportions are all kind of off, but I kind of was rolling with it. There was something a little bit uh, irregular about the whole thing, but I was kind of just trying to flow with it. You know, like the arms, everything was a little bit kind of. It's not even Matisse. It was. It was just, it was almost kind of a bit childish, which I try and embrace with all my drawings. This kind of the inner child in me, but this was almost like there was a little bit of like a playfulness coming through here, which was like you know when a child maybe you can't relate to this part too, but when a child says you give a child I'm gonna give you an example. So an adult comes along and draws a circle, and then like me as father goes to child, okay, son or daughter, color this, color this, color this circle in, but make sure you keep inside the lines. And then the child just does that and then looks up at you and goes, did it. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, I'm not talking about a child here who doesn't know how to do that or, you know, be a little bit autistic or something like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a child who clearly knows how to colour inside these lines, but they're looking up at you with a smile on their face, like, fuck you, basically. So however that relates to you, pile number, pile number two, there was a tiny bit of that energy in there. But here's the funny thing, like, there's something beautiful, at least for me. I know I'm a wacky creative, but there's something quite beautiful in that you would have never got if you coloured in the lines. There's something that reminded me of like Jupiter energy, which might be part of your reading, part twos. There's something that reminded me of almost the texture of like Jupiter. Um, and it's just kind of just got this energy to it that you can't really make up. Now, don't get me wrong, I could have done that in a different way and not felt anything from it. But just with that particular example, I was like, that is something interesting in itself, which maybe colouring directly inside of it maybe wouldn't have given me. So, pile number two is these are all kind of like abstract examples, but if you can use your intuition, they are kind of tying into your energy and to the point of this reading. So yeah, like to bring it in to how it relates to this reading, is that there's something about this character, at least for me, which is freeing themselves. Now, if you didn't understand this drawing, it is like a woman taking off her garment, and that's what the illustration is. I've put the crown above her head because she's actually leaning her head backwards, so you can't see the crown. So I just done that floating crown just so you know that it's a queen energy, possibly a princess energy, but I'm thinking mainly queen. I've done it with the other pile. You may want to relate this to energies in tarot. So Queen of Swords, Queen of Swords, Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Wands, and Queen of Cups energy. For me, I don't know why I'm getting Queen of Cups energy. So maybe this is something to do with your emotions, how you feel, It could be related to relationships too. It's funny actually. I kind of just got a poke from spirit there. This might be to do with like um, a letting go of kind of feeling critiqued or feeling, yeah, that makes sense now. That makes sense. That makes sense because that was coming through when I was drawing. Like, uh, you might be a type of person, this is probably tapping more into the feminine energy, but you know, guys might be able to relate to this too. Um, when, like, let's say, for example, you go into a romantic relationship and you're constantly thinking about, um, am I this person's type? Am I good enough for this person? Like, because there's things to be critiqued here, right? Like, this isn't symmetrical. The arms are a little bit weirdly shaped. You know, everything's a little bit misaligned, but it somehow works, right? As an illustration, at least how I see it. And that comes from fully embracing it. And some of you might understand what I'm saying here because I've said it in other readings sometimes. It's like, as someone who illustrates or draws, there is a sense, there is a tendency to want to be perfect with a drawing. And when I do a perfect drawing, if you're been here for a while, you'll know that I say it too. It's like, when I do a drawing and it comes out like crystal perfect, I'm like, damn, I even like that. So what I'm saying to you here is that this is actually kind of crystal perfect. But what's interesting here is that it's crystal perfect with its imperfections. These imperfections are purposely there, you know? So that's why I knew it was a message for you, part two, is that there's, you know, like if I wanted to draw this body aligned, I definitely could, but that wasn't the energy that was coming through. It was this playful energy of, fuck it. I'm embracing those imperfections and take me as I am. You know, that would be the energy here. Take me as I am, if that doesn't kind of come across. So part two is that's your reading. If you enjoyed it, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Okay, part three. Sorry for any background noise if it's picking up there. Just sitting on the energy. Okay, so interesting reading, interesting vibration. They've all been kind of, I'm not sure if they're called, is it major arcana of the tarot energy, or at least king, queen energy. Um, and they've all kind of had quite a, I wouldn't call it like a humorous energy, but something kind of fun about it. So I've and it's not like fun as in if you've listened to some of my readings, part three, and I'm just kind of laughing throughout half the bloody reading. I don't mean funny like that. I mean like just light-hearted. There's something childlike coming through in these readings. I'm not sure why, but it's fun and it's. I'm kind of talking more on just literally pen on paper style. There's something kind of fun about it, quite freeing. So that might just be your vibe, or just energetically the vibe, because that would make sense because it's come through in all of the readings. So astrologically, possibly there's something kind of fun energy coming through. So with this pile, the main energy is kind of emperor energy. And if you don't know what's going on here, it would be the emperor energy, but they are actually giving, they're donating. So if you're in this, if you're watching this, I feel like possibly you're in an energy. I don't need to tell you to donate, because I think you are in this donating energy. And I feel like this is just confirmation for you, pile threes. I don't think this is a reading where I'm saying donate more, don't be greedy. I've got a feeling that you're naturally doing this, and if you don't feel like this is of material charity or giving away, this is definitely of your time or energy, that you're being very what's the word, generous. You're being very generous. So yeah, see how that applies to you. I don't know if this is, I don't really know how it applies at all, because I think it's going to be different for all of you. But yeah, there was a few kind of things that I got from this as well, which was I was like, oh man, this guy is really overweight as well. I know that's a funny thing to think, but like with my comic-y style, they kind of look a little bit podgy all the time, to be honest. But I just wanted to highlight here as well that almost if you was to take off this man's garms, he's not actually overweight. He's just wearing really baggy clothes. And I know that's like, what are you talking about, Zed? Why is that necessary? But I think I don't know, because I think that's important. I think it's an important point. It's like because I get the kind of visual of like, you know, if you thought someone was kind of overweight and then they take off their top and they're actually really quite ripped or something. I get that vibe. So again, if you're a woman watching this, you're not really gonna necessarily relate, but it might. Yeah, actually, women can relate to this, because it's like, you know, like if like a good example of this for a woman would be like, let's say if a woman was sitting down at a table and she just had these huge titties, huge breasts, and you would maybe assume that she's quite a big girl, but sometimes when a woman's got a big boobs, it doesn't mean that she's big all over. Like she could get up and she could actually have a really slim waist, but sometimes there's like an illusion there that that person is overweight or bigger, like a bigger size, just because of a chest size. So pile number three is, that would be the equivalent of like the woman. Or you could even use the exact same analogy without me talking about titties. I could have just talked about a woman in a big robe as well. Oh, shit. God be like looking at me with the raised eyebrow. Like, why do you have to talk about titties in the reading? Sorry. I'm sorry. If you enjoyed the reading, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the If You Pause website, ifyoupause.com. Take it easy, pal freeze. Keep being generous. Take care.